So this lesson is more important than you think. There's so many times I'm working on a show where the look was somewhat baked in, or they just shot it in Rec 709 and they want me to come in and touch it up and just balance everything out and add some juice. They're just looking for pure color correction. So this section is a perfect candidate for that. So I picked out all these shots that are Rec 709 and they were shot like that, and we're gonna go in, we're just gonna color correct them and just fix them up as much as we can. So this shot I can easily tell by looking at it, even without looking at the scopes, that it's very much on the blue side, and we can see right here in our waveform, just look what's happening, and it's just completely off. Like, look at the blues right here. So we have to get that back in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna park right here, but I'm gonna use my keyboard and I'm gonna use my printer lights to get that dialed in. So I'm gonna bring my blue down. I'm bringing my blue down. And somewhere around here is where I wanna park. Maybe somewhere around here. And right there, look at this, where he lives, we were able to white balance this out. Now on here, if it's a little bit on the bluer side, that's okay, because this looks like it's the sunset. We can leave it somewhere around here for color correction purposes. So this is looking good, and now what we can do is just pop him out. So I'm gonna go in and create a window, create a vignette around him, and make it something general like that, and just twist it a little, soften it up quite a bit, flip it, go in here and pull it down quite a bit, and then I'm going to create an outside. Now that's going to determine on what do you really want to do. Do you want to pop him out, or do you want to keep one side of his face dark? So that's going to be up to you. I'm going with this, and since he's our main character, I want to give him as much light as possible. So we're going to just leave it on that, and then if I do before and after, you can see the difference. So much more detail that's coming in, and even you can see it here, and we're able to preserve quite a bit. I mean, honestly, I don't know what else you do with this shot, you know? If we're going for color correction, this is corrected, and the emphasis is where it's supposed to be, and we're ready to move on to the next shot. Skin is right in the ballpark. We can see it right here. I don't think the skin needs any work. This is perfect. So we're moving on. This shot, I think, will definitely need some work. It just feels like there's a green cast on the entire image. So let's start with lifting the gain a little, not too much, and then bringing the lift down, and then we can raise the gamma up a little bit, bring the gain down somewhere around here, and then let me pull the green out of it a little bit. So I'm going to move it towards magenta. Anytime you're trying to figure out what it needs, push it a bit far so you can land where you need to be. And you always got to kind of go extreme, go the other route, and then pull it back. So this is not looking too bad, but I'm just going to keep moving this wheel around until I'm satisfied. I know the horse is white, so as long as I keep him in that world, we're going to be looking good. And the thing that I just don't really dig in this shot is that everything is very saturated. So I think that is my main problem with this shot. So I want to go in here and maybe pull some saturation out of the green. It's just a bit much. So I'm going to go in here. Or you know what? Let me try this. I think this is looking better. And then maybe I can give it saturation and just keep pulling and see what that does. So I want to pull that a little bit more. Okay, now what I want to do is I actually do want to move the gamma a little bit on the warmer side. So something like that. I mean, I think it's looking much better than what we started with. I'm going to create a new node, and in this one I'm just going to go into hue versus saturation, and I'm going to pull my green down a little bit just to get a little bit more sting out of this. Like, I feel like it was still pretty strong. So now we're getting somewhere. If I do a before and after, it's not too bad. There's no focal point, so I'm just gonna create a vignette, and we're gonna create something like this, and I'm gonna rotate it like that, and maybe extend it a little bit more, raise it a little bit more, and now soften it, flip it, and then let's see, and let's create an outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my highlights down because I definitely don't want the highlights to be blown out. So I'm going to do something like that. And then let me grab these two and turn them on and off. So now we're definitely putting more emphasis there. And then I want to like suck the color out of it a little bit more. And let me see if I have to track it. Maybe I do, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do it anyways. Alright, that's good. And then let's go back here, play it through. So for a shot like this, I feel like we're good here. And now if we want to do more, we can just take the green and just switch it to make it look like something else. But then we're entering into the color grading territory. So I would just park it here. If I look at my horse, it looks black as it's supposed to. If I'm looking at their skins are looking good. And nothing is blown out, everything is in control, you know. So that's color corrected with maybe just a hint of style because we were bringing down the color boost and we were raising the saturation, but it's there, it's good. Moving on. This one, absolutely red bias, a lot of red and blue, so we're gonna have to pull that out. The bottom looks pretty well balanced, so we don't have to touch that. And if it's just the midtones that we have to adjust, so in that case, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to start bringing it down and I'm going to start moving it over. So I mean, this is starting to look pretty good. Yeah, that's starting to look really good. So Just look at the color of the sand. It looks proper. Horse is looking white. The blacks are black. This is looking pretty good. It's high noon. I mean, just look at where the sun is. So in this situation, the contrast is, it's good. You know, you can leave the contrast as is. One more thing that I would do is I would pull some pink out of the sky. If you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can just bring it down a touch, and there you go. I think it's pretty well balanced at this point. Started from this, landed right here, and the thing that you got to remember with Rec709 stuff is that don't overdo it. Just fix what needs to be fixed and move on. I mean, this looks good, and that was super simple. This is where we were, this is what we did, and we did it very easily because we knew exactly where the problem was. The problem was not in the highlights, the problem was not in the shadows, it was in the gamma. We corrected it really fast with one node. Moving on. This needs a couple of things. Let's park it on a hero frame. So I would say this is good. So the number one thing is let's bring the highlights back. So I would park it somewhere around here. So now we're getting some detail back, not a lot, but some. So that's a good starting point. Now what I want to do is in this shot, I definitely want to isolate their skins and just give it a little bit more juice. But before we get there, let's fix the color balance. So you can see the blue and green are more lifted than the red. So let's fix that. And I think we can do that right here with our lift. So we can adjust it something like that, and it adds some green. Don't worry about it, we're gonna fix it with our gamma. So I'm gonna try to balance that out, and it's looking much better. Just look at her skin and just look at the blue that was there before, and it's starting to balance out quite a bit. And we can see that right here as well. So at this point, I would just like bring the lift down a little bit, just to give it a little bit more contrast. So this is looking fine. I would bring my gamma down because I feel like there's just something like that. So now it's, the skins are looking good. Like this is before, this is after. So we're getting that information out. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna work on each person individually. So we're gonna start with our hero right here. So I'm gonna select her skin, and best part to select the skin from is the forehead. So just go ahead, swipe it, and I want to keep it isolated. I just want to keep it on her. So I'm gonna expand it. Actually, I'm gonna reduce that a little bit, move it around to get the full skin. This is better, and then something like that. Add. And then this time I'm just going to create a custom shape. I know she doesn't really get out of this area, so as long as I have a shape created like this, garbage mat, and then soften it a little bit, I should be fine. So let's look at it. So yeah, I will be fine. And now I can just go ahead and look at where she is. Her skin is looking good right here, you can see, but I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little bit more juice. This is where we were, this is where we are. Just lift it a little bit. I think it was needed. So just look at this area, and now look at the hand, and now chest. I mean, you know, she just popped out a little bit, and I think that gives her some life. And then what I want to do is I want to even it out. So I'm going to do the trick that we used earlier. So I'm going to keep it around 30 and just look how it softens everything. And then what I want to do is just give her a little bit more love, bring her up a little bit. So this is where we started, this is where we are. Everything is very even and nice. And now one more thing that I'm going to show you is right here, just go to glow and you can drop a glow on there, and it's one of my favorite tools to use. And just look what it does. Like, a little goes a long way. If I turn it off, just look at her face, turn it on, it's just doing so little, but it's just so subtle. And just look at that. So it adds a really nice glow. So I will leave that on. So that's her. Now I'm going to create a parallel node. This is going to be for her. And we're going to go ahead and grab her skin right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll try to grab as much as I can. So this is better. Something like that. And then I'll just add a lot of blur, and I'm going to go in. Actually, I'm gonna add that, and then let's play it through. So this is looking pretty good. I'm gonna hold it here, and then let's look at where she's sitting. So definitely needs some juice. She's definitely paler than her, so we're gonna respect that. So that was before, this is after. It's just, it gives it more life, you know, and that's what's important. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to even everything out. And you can see what's happening there. It's helping out quite a bit. I'm also going to add glow. And it's not necessarily a beauty shoot, so we don't have to go too far with that. But just look at our two actors in the front. We did quite a bit of work, and it just works. Like, it doesn't, there's nothing funky about it besides the one thing that I just noticed, which is this part of her hand. So we have to clean that up, and let's just do that. So I'm gonna do this, grab my plus and start adding these parts. And then I don't want to add everything, so I'm gonna so now her arm is way more even, so this is looking much better. It even grabs more of her skin right there. So just look at the difference, it's insane. And then her, same thing, just enough to give it some juice. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another parallel node, and that's going to be for our dude in the back. So let's punch in on him. So one thing you got to remember, anytime you do that, if it's set to plus, it's not going to change on its own. So you're going to have to go back here, and now we select that. And I'm gonna get rid of that. That's a pretty nasty selection. So what I would do to help with this would be that. Like, I would just like literally restrict it only to his face, not even his arms, only to his face, and just keep it right there. And now let's pull him out. And then let's track him, so it's going to be easy. regardless of if he moves or not. And now let me just get rid of that. Look at it, play it back. So I mean, that's a lot of work right there, right? So if I just turn these three off and go back, and if you just look at it, so this is before, this is after, and how much work we're doing. And it's clean because I'm playing it back and there's nothing iffy going on. And this is the work that we've done. Doesn't seem a lot, but you saw when I was doing it, there was a lot of different techniques we were using. We made our ladies look angelic, and we made our dude pop out from the background because he was just literally lost in there. And it's all about the story. So everything that we did here helped the story, put the focus where we're supposed to be focusing. And that's what this was about. And you know, some might say that I might have pushed her a little too far, and that's my hero. So I did that because I worked on projects like this where this is what needed to be done, and that's what they asked for. And when they saw it, they flipped because they were just so stoked. In this shot, it's actually lit in this lighting, so there's not necessarily anything wrong with the way it looks. Although it looks like the balance is not there, but this is exactly how it was shot. But for something like that, if you want to balance it out, again, you can start with your printer lights right here, because we see that the red is just super biased and like really up there. So we can start bringing that down, and then we can start raising blue, and then we can just see something like that. Basically what we need to do is go in log and pull the blue down. So this is pretty much like we are getting it in the ballpark, like if you quote unquote want to call it balance. But honestly, I like how it was set up. But now if you look at the back right here, this looks white, so we're balancing it out. This is what it should look like if it's balanced. I really like the contrast on this, how it's set up. It's lit properly, so I don't even think you really need to do much. But if you are inclined to do something to it, then it's gonna start right here. We're gonna create a vignette around his face. You can even just broaden it a little bit. Push it, flip it, go here, bring everything else down just a tad, go to the outside node, something like that. Give them that little pop, and then let's track it. So tracking, boom boom boom, does a really good job. We know that. If I go before and after, now we're putting really nice emphasis on him. This is before, this is after. The focus is him. And let me just go and create one more thing. So another thing that I will tell you, whether you're color correcting or you're grading, that's just a little secret. The thing that I use is this offset wheel, under primaries wheel. So I take this and I start going crazy. I start like kind of going in circle to see if there's something that I go, oh, this is really cool. And then once I find that this is very cool, I can balance out this image, because now I can go, okay, so this is where I want it. Now if I go in my log wheels, I can start balancing everything out like I am right now. And then I have this really cool look. Now I can go into my primaries and I can go into my gamma and just start adding some more warmth if I want. But that look that I was able to create would have never came to me if I wasn't, I'm gonna balance out my greens. This look would have never came to me if I wasn't doing what I just did, like where I just started moving my offset around and then found a spot where I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, I'm gonna go with that. But again, this is outside the scope of color correction, but I just wanted to give you an example. And obviously now our skin is a little bit off and we don't want that. So in that case, we're gonna pull it back to where the skin is looking somewhat in that ballpark. This is where we started, this is where we are. Obviously this one was sort of like a look, but if we turn that off, this is where we started, this is where we are. Focus is on him, white balance is good, we're moving on, and we're ready to go. This one you can take it or leave it, but this is what we got. Starting point, end point. And guys, this was the last shot in Rec709, so you got to see, like, you don't recreate something if you don't need to. Rec709 footage can be easy to work with if you just literally attack what's ahead of you and keep chugging along. A lot of the times when you're going to get Rec709 look is because they really want to turn it around right away, and they don't have the luxury or the time to give you weeks to work on it. And not to mention that you just don't have a lot of room to play with. So having color correction skills come in handy big time when you're working with Rec709, because you don't lose your mind trying to recreate or reinvent the wheel. You just attack it where it matters and you just move along.